A shadow lengthens over the world. Authoritarianism on the rise. The world watches with bated breath. A shadow is spreading across the globe, darkening the shores of freedom and democracy. Authoritarianism, once a specter of the past, is rearing its head once more. From the heart of Europe to the bustling cities of Asia, the siren song of strongmen echoes in the ears of the disillusioned and the discontented. This is not a drill. This is not a history lesson. We are witnessing the rise of a new era, one where the hard-won victories of democracy are at risk. This is not just a problem for far-off lands. The tendrils of authoritarianism are reaching into established democracies, exploiting existing divisions and sowing seeds of discord. We see it in the rise of populist movements, the erosion of trust in institutions, and the normalization of extremist views. The very principles that have underpinned global stability for decades are under threat. The stakes could not be higher. Our collective future hinges on our ability to recognize the danger, understand its root causes, and mount a unified defense of the values we hold dear: freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. The time for complacency is over. The time for action is now. The seductive lure of strongmen, understanding the appeal of authoritarianism. Why are so many drawn to the allure of authoritarianism? The answer lies in the complex interplay of fear, uncertainty, and a longing for simple solutions in an increasingly complex world. People crave stability, security, and a sense of belonging, basic human needs that can be exploited by charismatic leaders peddling simplistic narratives and scapegoating the other. Economic inequality fuels the fire. As the gap between the haves and have-nots widens, resentment festers. The disenfranchised, struggling to make ends meet, become susceptible to promises of swift justice and a return to a mythical golden age. They see in the strongman a savior, someone who will drain the swamp and restore their lost status. Technology, once hailed as a democratizing force, has become a double-edged sword. Social media, while connecting people across borders, also facilitates the spread of disinformation and propaganda. Algorithms designed to maximize engagement create echo chambers, reinforcing existing biases and making it difficult to distinguish fact from fiction. In this climate of fear and uncertainty, authoritarianism offers a seductive illusion of control. It promises to restore order, punish the guilty, and protect the innocent. But this promise of security comes at a steep price: the surrender of individual liberties, the silencing of dissent, and the dismantling of democratic institutions. Cracks in the foundation, the erosion of democracy in the West. The West, long considered a bastion of democracy, is not immune to the creeping tide of authoritarianism. In the United States, the rise of Donald Trump and the enduring strength of Trumpism highlight the fragility of democratic norms and institutions. Trump's attacks on the media, the judiciary, and the electoral process itself have eroded public trust and emboldened extremist elements within American society. Across the Atlantic, Europe grapples with its own set of challenges. Right-wing populist parties, fueled by anti-immigrant sentiment, economic anxieties, and a rejection of multiculturalism, have gained ground in countries like Hungary, Poland, and Italy. These parties often espouse nationalist rhetoric, demonize minorities, and undermine the rule of law, chipping away at the foundations of liberal democracy. The erosion of democracy in the West is a slow burn, a gradual chipping away at the institutions and norms that have long underpinned these societies. It is easy to become complacent, to dismiss warning signs as isolated incidents. But history teaches us that the erosion of democracy is rarely a sudden coup. It is often a slow and insidious process, a gradual normalization of the unacceptable until it is too late. Section 4, The Dragon's Grip Tightens. Authoritarianism's rise in China. In the East, China stands as a stark example of authoritarianism's resurgence. Under the leadership of Xi Jinping, the Chinese Communist Party has consolidated power, silenced dissent, and extended its control over all aspects of society. The CCP's use of sophisticated surveillance technology, censorship, and repression has created an Orwellian state where citizens are constantly monitored and any challenge to the party's authority is swiftly crushed. The CCP's model of authoritarian capitalism, with its focus on economic growth at all costs, poses a challenge to the liberal democratic model. China's economic clout gives it leverage on the world stage, allowing it to export its model of governance and undermine international efforts to promote human rights and democracy. The rise of China as a global power under an authoritarian regime presents a fundamental challenge to the existing world order. It is a stark reminder that democracy is not inevitable, that it requires constant vigilance and defense against those who seek to undermine it. Section 5, A World on Fire. The Consequences of Inaction. The consequences of inaction in the face of rising authoritarianism are dire. The erosion of democratic values and institutions, coupled with the rise of nationalism and xenophobia, creates a fertile ground for conflict and instability. As trust in international institutions wanes and countries turn inward, the likelihood of cooperation on global challenges such as climate change, pandemics, and economic crises diminishes. The human cost is immeasurable. Authoritarian regimes are inherently repressive, prioritizing the state over the individual. Basic human rights, freedom of speech, assembly, and the press are routinely violated. Minorities are scapegoated, dissent is silenced, and those who dare to challenge the regime face imprisonment, torture, or worse. The environmental consequences are equally alarming. Authoritarian regimes, often beholden to powerful economic interests, prioritize short-term economic gain over environmental sustainability. Deforestation, pollution, and climate change accelerate, jeopardizing the health of the planet and the well-being of future generations. In a world consumed by the flames of authoritarianism, the very foundations of peace, prosperity, and human progress are at risk. We cannot afford to stand idly by as the world we know crumbles around us. We must act, and we must act now.